Dolphins now selecting. So you could look at Josh Allen. He's still on the board. Maybe you go in that direction. You could go to linebacker.
I'm looking linebacker. Roquan Smith is there. I think it's great value. It does fill a big need. I think a pairing of Raekwon McMillan and Roquan Smith, a couple R's there at the linebacker spot, is a great fit. I think you take Roquan here, and you're very happy, and then you look toward round 2 to getting another guard and maybe a receiver potentially down the road as well.
All right, so we got the Dolphins at number 11. Josh Houtz of the Phinsider and SB Nation site ready to make the selection. Let's roll it.
This is Josh Houtz, writer for the Phinsider, part of the SB Nation network. And with the 11th pick in the 2018 Chat Sports NFL mock draft, the Miami Dolphins select Roquan Smith, linebacker, Georgia University. After suffering through a season of Jay Cutler and Matt Moore in 2017, it is obvious to everyone in the Dolphins organization that the team needs a legit backup plan to quarterback Ryan Tannehill. And although it appears Baker Mayfield and Josh Rose remain at the top of the Dolphins draft board, Wyoming quarterback Josh Allen and his rocket arm remain the talk of the draft. With Josh Allen the only one of these quarterbacks still available at 11, it was hard for me to pass up the opportunity, and I don't expect the Dolphins to do the same if the situation arises on April 26th. In my opinion, the Dolphins need to win now, and the best way to do so is to solidify the defense, and that is what I did in drafting Roquan Smith, the best linebacker in this year's class. Adding another dynamic playmaker in the middle of the Dolphins' defense is a must, and Smith has proven time and time again to be a natural-born leader and a difference maker throughout his tenure in Georgia. Although some scouts continue to use his small frame as a weakness, I believe it allows him to use his speed and quickness to shed blocks on his way to the ball carrier. Very rarely does Roquan Smith make any false steps, and does he very rarely misses a tackle. In my opinion, Smith is the best coverage linebacker in this year's draft, which will help immediately in Miami as the team has struggled to cover tight ends for the better part of the last decade.
Roquan Smith off the board, headed to the Miami Dolphins. Thank you, Josh, for that selection. Josh with the Phinsider of SB Nation. What do we make of this?
Easy A for me. I love this pick. It checks off my 2 big boxes to get A grades in the NFL draft. Does it fill a need, and is it good value? Check mark right there. Roquan is a great fit for Miami. It's a home run pick there. If this is how the draft actually breaks down, I think Miami is going to sprint to that podium to get that pick in.
All right, submit those grades there for Roquan as we take a look at the Buffalo Bills now selecting at 12 overall, thanks to that trade there with Cordy Glenn. So what do we make of the Buffalo Bills here?
I mentioned I don't think they're going to stay at 12. I think they're going to move in the draft, but no trades allowed in this journalist-led mock draft. So as they sit right now, Cam, I know you know how I feel about Josh Allen. I know how a lot of people watching how I feel about Josh Allen. But if this is the way the draft breaks down, I would be surprised if the Bills didn't hustle to the podium to get that number 12 pick in because they need a quarterback. Allen is, for some, the best guy available. I think that makes some sense there. Roquan's off the board. Maybe you could go Calvin Ridley if you're looking for a non-quarterback pick here, but I would imagine this ends up just being Josh Allen.
All right, so we got Ryan Brennan of Buffalo Caliber awaiting to make the selection for the Buffalo Bills. Here he is.
With the 12th pick in the 2018 NFL Draft, the Buffalo Bills will be selecting quarterback Josh Allen out of Wyoming. The Buffalo Bills have struggled to find a winning quarterback for almost 2 decades, causing a lot of unrest within the fan base. Head coach Sean McDermott and general manager Brandon Beane helped relieve some of that stress by getting to the playoffs in their first year, but the team is still without a clear starting quarterback after trading Tyrod Taylor to the Cleveland Browns. The team is adamant in finding a pure pocket passer, which is why Josh Allen will be a great fit in Buffalo. His size and arm strength allow him to stand in the pocket and read the defense, while also helping with the cold weather in Buffalo. At 6'5", he won't have much difficulty seeing over the defense and offensive lines. He will need to work on his throwing accuracy, which is one of the more difficult traits to improve on at the next level, but with a little help from the receiving corps and a solid offensive line, he could be able to make a smooth transition from college to pro. In Buffalo, Allen will enter a training camp battle with newly signed free agent A.J. McCarron and the team's 5th-round draft pick from last year, Nathan Peterman.
All right, thanks, Ryan. We'll check in with you later with another Buffalo Bills pick, but there is Josh Allen, the gunslinger himself.
Upside is there. Most upside of any quarterback and probably any player in this year's draft. The issue is, as a prospect right now, he's just not very good. The arm is there. The athleticism is there. The pure upside is there, yet he was wildly inaccurate at Wyoming. Why was that the case? Why didn't he improve even like a way like, for example, Lamar Jackson did? I've gone on many a Josh Allen rant. Maybe I should save up for the actual NFL draft when he goes super early. But given the way the draft will actually go, I am okay with this because I figured Allen's going to go way before number 12 overall, but no trades allowed, so he slides a little bit. So I'm not going to hate on it too much, Cam. I'll be nice today.
All right, there you go. Josh Allen off the board. The Buffalo Bills have selected there at number 12. You're watching NFL Daily, presented by Mizzen in Maine. I'm Cam Rogers. That's Tom Downey. Mizzen in Maine, check them out. Comfortable.af is the website for these advanced performance fabric shirts. Not just shirts, though. Pants, hats, sweatshirts, so much more. You got to check them out.
Cam, I have a confession to make.
What's that?
I was going to wear my Mizzen in Maine shirt today, but I left it at home. So I had to wear my backup shirt, and it's like cottony and kind of thick, and
it's like a towel.
Yeah, I really don't like it. I wish I was wearing my Mizzen in Maine one.
All right.
I got inside the office door. I'm like, shoot, I didn't bring my shirt today.
That just means you need more of them. So comfortable.af is the way to go. Let's go to number 13 in the order. We got the Washington Redskins here. I'm thinking interior defensive line, Tom.
I think that makes sense. I'm also not going to rule out Darius Geis. I think it's earlier than what he's actually going to go. But I think that makes sense for the Redskins. If you can get a halfback, a dynamic one, that's a good fit on that end. Beyond that, I don't know what else the Redskins really want to do. I think the interior defensive line does make a lot of sense as well. Two guys on the board that make sense for the Redskins camp. Daron Payne, Vita Vea. You know how I feel about Vea. He would be my pick here at number 13 overall. He happens to be on the board as well.
All right, so we got the Redskins selecting at number 13 overall. We've got Jacob Camenker of Riggos Rag, a fan-sided site. Let's see what he has to say for the Redskins.
With the 13th pick in the 2018 NFL Draft, the Washington Redskins are going to have many options of who to take. With 3 to 5 quarterbacks projected to go in the top 12 picks, the Redskins are going to have the pleasure of having a defensive player fall into their laps, much like they did last year with defensive lineman Jonathan Allen. This year, the Redskins have needs on the defensive line at nose tackle, and they could add some depth to their secondary as well. A running back and left guard are also needed, but it's unlikely that any players available at this position will provide enough value for the team to select them unless they trade down. With that said, the biggest need on the defense is at nose tackle, and there are 2 quality prospects available here, Vita Vea and Daron Payne. I happen to think that Daron Payne is a perfect fit for the Washington Redskins defense. Payne is one of the most athletic linemen in this class and had a terrific display at the Combine. Payne ran the 40-yard dash in 4.95 seconds and also had a terrific 10-yard split of 1.67. On the field, Payne did very well in the movement drills, and they matched up with his tape. In the national title run for Alabama, Payne was one of the best defensive players on the field, and he was a force to be reckoned with in the middle of the defensive line. He was able to push back centers at the point of attack, and he even made a key pick against Clemson and returned it 21 yards, which was unheard of for a man with a 6'2", 311-pound frame. In the Redskins defense, Payne will be able to be coached up by Jim Tom Sula and play alongside his college teammate Allen and give the team what they need on the defensive line, a big-bodied run stuffer. And while he may not have had the pass rushing production in college that many would hope for, he only had 3 sacks in 3 seasons, he has the athletic ability to improve in that area in the NFL. So, Daron Payne is the perfect fit for the Redskins at number 13.
All right, Jacob making the selection there of Riggos Rag, fan-sided site, and we got Daron Payne off the board. I like it.
I would have gone Vita Vea. I much prefer Vea. I don't hate Payne. I think he can be a 3-down nose guard. I just don't see the same production or even the same quickness off the snap that I saw with Vita Vea. He's a good prospect. He should go in the first round. He's not what his stats indicate. But I prefer Vita Vea. I don't necessarily hate the pick, but I don't think it was the right guy, right position, just not the top of their available interior defensive lineman in this year's class.
All right, so the Redskins are all set at 13. Now at 14, the Green Bay Packers could look at edge, could look at the interior of that offensive line as well, Tom. And the secondary had its fair share of issues last year, but also fair share of injuries too.
I'm looking at 2 areas. If Denzel Ward was on the board, he'd be a great pick, but he already went off the board. The Oakland Raiders took him at number 10 overall. So you could go with a guy like Josh Jackson. You could try and go with a Jair Alexander. But I would look at edge rusher. Two guys stick out to me. Harold Landry's on the board. That would be a home run pick. If you're not going to go Landry, maybe you go Marcus Davenport. But for me, I'm getting up to the podium here, and I'm picking Harold Landry.
We've got Ryan Wood of the Green Bay Press-Gazette ready to make the selection for the Green Bay Packers. Let's check in with Ryan.
Hey folks, this is Ryan Wood with the Green Bay Press-Gazette, selecting for the Green Bay Packers in the Chat Sports mock draft. With the 14th overall pick, the Packers select Marcus Davenport, edge rusher, University of Texas San Antonio. I will say this isn't quite the dream scenario for the Packers as far as how the board fell to them at 14. I do think that a legitimate case can be made that they prefer a few of the defenders already off the board, chief among them Florida State's Derwin James, Ohio State's Denzel Ward, and Virginia Tech's Tremaine Edmonds, but those are likely top 10 picks, and unless the Packers package some picks and trade up in the first round, this is a more realistic look at what they're facing. It's not necessarily a bad situation to be in. The Packers have a great need for quick twitch athletes on the edge of their defense, and in this situation, behind Bradley Chubb, they have their pick of edge rushers. That's something that GM Brian Gutekunst can certainly feel comfortable with. Marcus Davenport, there's some risk involved there. He's going to have to make that transition from Texas San Antonio to the NFL. He will be raw early in his career, but I think the Packers can feel good about him being a situational pass rusher with the long-term hope that he develops into an heir apparent for Clay Matthews.
All right, shout out to you, Ryan, for making that selection there for the Green Bay Packers. Davenport, see you later, is off the board.
I would have gone with Landry, but I do get the allure of Davenport. I think the physical upside is there to be a really good edge rusher. The Packers have a little bit more of a luxury than other teams that need an edge guy because they can get by with Nick Perry and Clay Matthews immediately. Davenport, as Ryan kind of said, there is probably a rotational guy early in his stop there. But I think the upside's there. Again, I would have gone with Landry, so I'll give it like a C or a B, but it's not necessarily a bad pick by any means. And if Landry does go earlier than this, I could definitely see Davenport being the actual Packers pick. I do think that they're pretty high on him as well.
All right, so there you go. Davenport is off the board, headed to the Green Bay Packers. Let's go to number 15. We've got the Arizona Cardinals, so Sam Bradford's in town. You got Mike Glennon as well. Do they go quarterback?
I wouldn't. Maybe you go Lamar Jackson, but I think the Cardinals have other pressing needs, and if they want to try and get by with Bradford and Glennon for now, get a quarterback maybe next year. I know that they're interested in QBs, so that makes some sense. So I could live with a pick like Jackson here. None of the other QBs are even remotely worth a top 15 pick, though. So if you're not going to go quarterback, if you don't think Jackson's worth that top 15 selection, I'm looking at wide receiver in particular. Calvin Ridley's on the board. Ooh, you signed Bryce Butler. You desperately need more receiver help, so I think Calvin Ridley to Arizona here makes a ton of sense.
All right, we've got Scott Allen on the line. He writes for Raising Zona of Phinsider. Let's check in with his selection.
Hi, I'm Scott Allen from RaisingZona.com, part of the Phinsider network covering the Arizona Cardinals. For this draft, I have selected Kyle Lauletta, quarterback from Richmond. I've considered several other people here, including quarterback Lamar Jackson from Louisville. Quarterback is one of the biggest needs for the Arizona Cardinals this offseason as they're looking for their future quarterback. For now, they've taken in Sam Bradford and Mike Glennon, and taking Lauletta here, although it could be a little bit of a stretch at number 15 of the first round, he does have the opportunity to be able to learn behind a veteran like both Bradford and Glennon. What is good about this pick is it will allow Lauletta to not necessarily have to come in right away. He can sit for a couple of years. Lauletta, although he's projected really more as a late first rounder, early second rounder, maybe middle second rounder, but his stock has been rising. So I see the Cardinals going after a quarterback here. He's got a good size at 6'3". He was the MVP of the Senior Bowl this year. So although he's coming from a little bit of a smaller school, that shouldn't deter the Cardinals from being able to bring him in.
Scott Allen with an absolute stunner of a selection. Folks, we are just reporting these picks. We are not making them ourselves. Tom Downey is beside himself. I'm turning red because I don't really know what to say about this one. Kyle Lauletta. Wow.
Scott's a great guy, but what? This would be an absolute stunner if this actually went down. I don't have a day 2 grade on him. Let me put it this way, Cam. You know how I feel about Josh Allen, right? I don't like Josh Allen. I would rather take Josh Allen than I would take Kyle Lauletta. Lauletta does not have the arm, I don't think, to be a great starting NFL quarterback. I think if you really want to grade this honestly, there's a reason there are a lot of laughy faces flowing across the screen right now.
Yeah.
This one was a massive stunner. It didn't make sense to me at all. Didn't make sense to you and as we're here watching it. I look, if you want a quarterback, go take Lamar Jackson. Don't take Lauletta. Like, he's not Jimmy Garoppolo. And I think that's maybe what some people want him to be is, oh, he is a FCS quarterback who has a nice release and good accuracy, but he's not Garoppolo. So I don't like this pick at all. I just don't think it makes any sense whatsoever.
So Lauletta goes off the board before Lamar Jackson. A stunner so far in the journalist-led mock draft.
I got nothing for you.
All right, so with that, let's go to number 16 now. Let's see if we can get back on track here, Tom. We got the Baltimore Ravens.
I think we're kind of off the rails at this point here. A couple areas Baltimore could go. I wouldn't rule out inside linebacker, but Cam, you and I have discussed this a lot at various points here. Receiver seems to very much be a key area of need for the Ravens. Top guy for most, Calvin Ridley is still on the board as well, although I know you're not the biggest fan of Ridley.
But you know what? I do respect this guy, Matthew Stevens of Ravens Wire. He is standing by with the selection of my Baltimore Ravens. So let's take a look, see what Matthew has to say.
Hello, I'm Matthew Stevens with Ravens Wire. With the number 16 pick in the 2018 NFL Draft, the Baltimore Ravens select Alabama wide receiver Calvin Ridley. I chose Ridley for this case, mainly because the Baltimore Ravens still need wide receivers. While they've signed Michael Crabtree and John Brown, it follows a similar method to what they've usually done, which is sign an older wide receiver, in this case Michael Crabtree at 30, and then sign kind of a more often injured wide receiver in John Brown. While both of them are very capable, the Ravens still very much need a young wide receiver to come in, develop with a team, develop with quarterback Joe Flacco, or if they decide to bring in anyone else that is younger, and go ahead and really help develop this wide receiver core beyond just the next year or two. With Ridley, you've got the top of this draft class at wide receiver, and the fact that he's around at number 16 is kind of astounding to me, but the early run on quarterbacks helps that to drop down to Baltimore. And honestly, given the fact that they love Alabama players, you've got an Alabama player in Ridley, and you have a need at wide receiver, I think it's a pretty easy selection for the Baltimore Ravens in that instance. Again, this is Matthew Stevens from the Ravens Wire. Thank you very much.
All right, Matthew Stevens there of Ravens Wire, a USA Today website, going with Calvin Ridley to the Baltimore Ravens. Tom, I don't like this pick because I think the Ravens are okay with Crabtree, with Brown, and maybe they bring in Decker as well. But me being a big boy football fan, I want to see guard here.
All right, so you want to see offensive linemen. I guess I get that side of things. But I think this makes a lot of sense for the Ravens. They do need more receiver help. Even after signing Crabtree, they've shown interest in adding other wide receivers. I think he's the best guy receiver in this year's draft. Yes, he's older. Yes, he's not necessarily a freak athlete, but he gets open. He's a good route runner. He's the type of guy that quarterbacks are going to like a lot as their actual number one receiver.
All right,
or
so
number 2.
Ridley is off the board, going to the Baltimore Ravens. Let's summarize our journalist-led mock draft. So far, we've got Darnold, Rosen, Baker Mayfield, Minkah Fitzpatrick, 1 through 4 there. Pretty standard stuff.
Chalk, more or less. Maybe not quite Minkah, but that's I've seen mocked enough.
Let's go to 5 through 8. Tremaine Edmonds going to the Broncos.
Surpriser.
Bradley Chubb, Quentin Nelson, and then Saquon at number 8, falling all the way.
I get why Nelson Barkley went 7-8, but if this was my personal mock draft, I would have flipped them.
And then the next slate of 4 here, we got Derwin James, Denzel Ward, Roquan Smith to the Dolphins. Love that pick. And then Josh Allen to the Bills.
Roquan, one of the best ones we've seen so far. I'm not a huge Josh Allen fan, but for the Bills at 12, I get it. It does make sense.
And then insanity ensues.
Off the rails here.
Deron Payne to the Redskins, sure. Marcus Davenport to the
Okay.
Packers, interesting. Kyle Lauletta
We'll
out
never
of Richmond
understand it. Not a first-round guy.
To the Big Toaster, Arizona Cardinals, and then Calvin Ridley to the
Ridley, we're back on track with Ridley, but
Okay.
Lauletta kind of threw us off the track there. I actually don't even know if he's going to go day 2.
We're at the midway point in our journalist-led mock draft. That means the Chargers are next. Now next here, they're at number 17, and Trey Boston, free agent, could look at safety here.
Safety could be an option. I'm also looking more along the lines of interior defensive linemen. I think Maurice Hurst or Vita Vea, both guys on the board, make a ton of sense. Both fill needs, different types of needs on the defensive line for the Chargers, but I think both would be solid fits. And then I guess we can mention quarterback. The Chargers have always shown interest, but they've never done it before, so I don't know why they would do it this year with Lamar Jackson.
All right, so with that, we have Richard Wade on the line, ready to make the selection. He's a writer for Bolts from the Blue, an SB Nation website. He'll be selecting for the Chargers. Let's take a look.
Hi, this is Richard Wade from Bolts from the Blue, and I'll be making the selection for the Chargers in this year's mock draft. With the 17th overall pick, the Chargers select out of Louisville quarterback Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson, some have said, will have to switch to wide receiver at the NFL level. That is not only ridiculous, we think he's a perfect fit for the system that Anthony Lynn wants to run in Los Angeles. For that reason, even though there are other needs on the team, we're going with Jackson.
Lamar Jackson off the board. Big time thank you to Richard for making that selection, writer for Bolts from the Blue, SB Nation website. So Lauletta goes before Lamar, but, you know, Jackson does go off the board here. We did see some interest from the Chargers with Jackson. I believe there was some sort of meeting that went on a couple of weeks ago, and there is intrigue here. I like it.
I'm okay with it. I mean, we just had Lauletta go off the board 2 picks earlier, so much better pick a quarterback. I like Lamar Jackson. He is definitely a quarterback. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. He's more accurate than Josh Allen was. He's way more dynamic. He truly is the closest thing we've seen to Michael Vick, and people want to move him to wide receiver. Doesn't make any sense. So I have a second-round grade on Lamar Jackson, but we know how quarterbacks rise. If you think Lamar is your franchise guy, I would definitely take him at number 17 overall. So the Chargers have the luxury now of also sitting Lamar for at least a year. He can sit and learn behind Phillip Rivers at quarterback. Maybe there's a package to get him on the field because he is just so dynamic and so incredibly talented with the ball in his hands. You want to find him the way to get snaps and whatnot. But he is a quarterback first and foremost. The upside is there. There are the concerns about the accuracy, about the turnovers, and about the generally undersized frame he sports. But the upside, I think, is worth it for the Chargers and Lamar Jackson. Again, I probably would have gone defensive tackle because I don't necessarily love the value of him at 17, but it's not a reach like we've seen with other quarterbacks so far.
All right, so the Seattle Seahawks are now up. They have some needs on the offensive line. Could look at tight end as well, perhaps corner to kind of revamp that secondary there.
Well, we know that Seattle needs an offensive lineman, and we also know that Seattle never takes an offensive lineman like they need to do so. So a lot of good guys, Isaiah Wynn, Hernandez, Connor Williams, actually everyone's on the board right now. Maybe that's not the route they go. I could see Josh Jackson. I think he'd be a good fit at corner as well for Seattle.
All right, we've got John Fraley of Field Goals, an SB Nation site, ready to make the selection for the Seattle Seahawks.
Hi, my name is John Fraley. I'm from fieldgoals.com, where we cover the Seahawks. And with the 18th pick of the 2018 NFL Draft, the Seattle Seahawks will select Arden Key, edge rusher from LSU. Now, pretty tough to pass on Vita Vea here. Local guy, defensive lineman. Everybody needs defensive linemen. Seriously considered him for the 18th pick. Guy from Seattle, we saw him blossom into a star, and he's been rising up the draft board. But looking at edge rusher as a really strong need for the Seahawks this season. After losing Michael Bennett, trade, and Cliff Averill probably to a career-ending injury, the Seahawks are thin at edge rusher. Now, John Schneider doesn't necessarily like to draft for need. This hasn't been what we've seen in his 8 years in Seattle. But the need is so strong right here at edge rush. You've got Frank Clark you might or might not keep next year. You've got Dion Jordan, who may or may not be back to form. The need is too great to pass up.
All right, John, thanks so much for making that selection there. So Arden Key off the board. A lot of people have him going around that second round.
Back off the rails, I think. This also does strike me as a classic Seahawks pick. Not necessarily their biggest need, a guy with off-the-field issues, but there's pure talent there. Kind of like Malik McDowell 2.0, just a different position there. Arden Key, for me, has some massive, massive red flags with off-field concerns, was really underweight this year. I'm not touching him in round 1, probably not in round 2 either.
All right, so Arden Key is off the board. We've got the Dallas Cowboys selecting at number 19 overall. Vita Vea is there.
Cam, he's there.
He's there.
Do it. Make it happen. Give me my boy Vita Vea. And I know we got Katie Drummond here coming up. I would love the pick of Vita Vea. He's my guy. He's my number 1 defensive tackle. He's a top 10 guy for me in this year's draft class. At number 19, I don't think there's any chance he ends up being there. Give me Vita Vea. Make this pick happen. Make me a happy boy.
Katie Drummond of Cowboys Wire ready to roll here with his selection, so let's see.
The Cowboys could go in a multitude of directions when it comes to the number 19 pick. They could use it to move up, grab a falling target they don't believe is going to come all the way down to number 19, or they could trade back and try to acquire multiple picks in what we consider the sweet spot between picks 25 and 45. For this iteration, though, we're going with DJ Moore, wide receiver out of Maryland. What Moore brings to the table is the speed element that they lost when Bryce Butler went to Arizona, but that's all Butler did. Moore is much more than that. Sorry for the pun. What he brings to the table is precise route running, great hands, and a very strong lower body that helps him get out of tackles whenever he is met by a defender that he couldn't run past. The Cowboys have a problem with wide receiver speed. We all know that they tried to get rid of Des Bryant, or they were planning to get rid of Des Bryant if they had signed Sammy Watkins, so he's not long for this team. Getting more now allows them to have Bryant as their number 1 this year, but move on from him in 2019, turning the reins over to Moore. Now, we considered other positions, Vita Vea at defensive tackle, Harold Landry as defensive end, some of the linebackers, and most importantly, offensive guard. They need a left guard badly, and it's a worry that it will dry up by the time they get around on the second pick or the second round pick, which is why they would probably like to target a trade back and acquire multiple prospects. But for now, DJ Moore's a guy. He will immensely help the Cowboys offense and most importantly, be a new weapon for Dak Prescott in his evolution as Cowboys quarterback.
All right, Tom, DJ Moore off the board, not Vita Vea, KD Drummond of Cowboys Wire. With that
I just want to Vita Vea so much. But look, he's not going to be there, so I guess I'll kind of move on and pretend that there's not actually going to end up happening there. But I get the pick a little bit here because I think DJ Moore would be a great fit for the Cowboys. And like Katie mentioned, if you take DJ Moore in round 1, say goodbye to Des Bryant. He's not coming back to the Cowboys if that ends up being the case. Look, again, I would have gone Vita Vea. I love him. I think he is an incredible player. The Cowboys don't always value one technique, so we know that they've shown a lot of interest in wide receivers this year. They've shown a ton of interest in DJ Moore. So I guess I can get that one there. I would have gone with Vita Vea. That's why it's only a B. As great as Katie's video was, I thought it was the best one we've had so far. And I don't hate the pick. Vita was there, Cam. Vita Vea.
I hear you.
I love him. He's my draft crush this year.
You know you do, buddy. Maybe he'll go to the Detroit Lions. They select here at number 20. Could address edge rusher, perhaps interior of that defense.
Well, you mentioned the edge rusher. I saw a good comment here that kind of thought more or less summed up their options. Hurst, Vea, Landry, and Geis. Those are all 4 quality options there. I would go with Harold Landry. I know that I love Vita Vea, but I think the Lions have enough defensive linemen. Zigging out is a big question mark going forward. You get Harold Landry, immense value at number 20, which, by the way, is the same thing I believe that happened in our fan-led mock draft.
We've got Jeremy Reisman of the Pride of Detroit SB Nation website ready to make the selection. Let's see what the pick is.
Hey everybody, my name is Jeremy Reisman. I'm the managing editor of PrideOfDetroit.com, the Detroit Lions blog for the SB Nation. I'm here with the 20th overall pick for the Detroit Lions, and I'm going with edge rusher Harold Landry out of Boston College. I think this is a phenomenal fit for the Detroit Lions. I consider guys like Vita Vea. The Lions also need interior pass rush. I've considered a guy like Will Hernandez. Lions have an opening at left guard. But Harold Landry, to me, is just perfect fit. It's kismet that he falls to the Lions because guess what? His defensive line coach at Boston College, Paul Pasqualoni, Now he's the defensive coordinator for the Detroit Lions. Perfect fit there. If there's anyone that knows him, it's Paul Pasqualoni. 2016, we're talking 16.5 sacks for Harold Landry. I know he wasn't as good as in 2017, but I have a feeling that had to do with his ankle injury more than anything else. The Lions have Ziggy Ansah for one more year. I don't think he's coming back in 2019, so Harold Landry's going to come in there, going to be the Lions' premier pass rusher going forward, and is going to turn around this defense for a guy that loves a good defense, Matt Patricia, the Lions' new head coach. So that's my pick overall at 20th. If you agree with me, disagree with me, hit me up at Detroit Online on Twitter or follow me at prideofdetroit.com.
All right, thanks, Jeremy, for that selection. Harold Landry certainly addresses a need there for Detroit.
I love it. And, you know, maybe it's not Vita Vea, who I have higher on my board than Landry, but positional value does matter, Cam. An edge rusher is simply more important than a one technique. The Lions have Ziggy Ansah. He's a question mark beyond this year. He's on the franchise tag. The depth behind him, there are some guys, but none of them are their actual number one edge rusher. Landry was hurt this year. That's going to cause him to drop a little bit because his numbers weren't as good as it would have been had he been healthy. Had he been healthy for this year the entire season, I think he would have been in the discussion right alongside Bradley Chubb. 2016 Landry, not that different from what we've seen with guys like Chubb.
All right, so the Lions have selected at number 20. Let's summarize the list so far in our journalist-led mock draft. So we've got Darnold, Rosen, Mayfield, all gone, followed by Minkah at number 4. Next slate of 4 here, Tremaine Edmonds to the Broncos, Bradley Chubb to the Colts, Quentin Nelson to the Bucks, and then you got Saquon to the Bears.
Edmonds is a surprise. I would have flipped Nelson Barkley, but I get the mindset from behind both of those picks.
9 through 12 here, Niners, they get Derwin James, Denzel Ward to the Raiders, there's Roquan to the Dolphins, Josh Allen, big arm going to the Bills.
I love the Roquan Smith pick. You know how I feel about Josh Allen, but compared to the other ones we're about to get to, really wasn't that bad.
All right, 13 through 16, everybody buckled up. Daron Payne to the Redskins, Marcus Davenport to the Packers, Kyle Lauletta out of Richmond.
Off the rails, didn't
to
make
the Arizona
sense.
Cardinals, Calvin Ridley to the Baltimore Ravens.
I just don't get that one.
Okay.
And I don't think anyone in the comment section really did either.
We got the Chargers at 17. They grab Lamar Jackson. Arden Keeg, who has a second-round grade by many out there, going 18.
Classic Seahawks pick. Shouldn't happen, though, because he should not go in round 1. Too many off the field and focus concerns, plus some injury red flags as well.
DJ Moore to the Cowboys, and then Harold Landry to the Detroit Lions.